San Francisco County Transportation Authority Community Advisory Committee, or CAC. I think it's the 28th, actually. But, yeah. I'm Kat Siegel, chair of the CAC. Before I give the chair's report, I'd like to ask Maria Lombardo, who is doubling as our clerk this evening, to do a roll call to ensure we have quorum. And then Daniela Reblay, our operator for tonight, will read an announcement about public comment.
Thank you. Please say present. I call your name. Member Bars. Present. Bars present. Member Chen. Chen present. Chen present. Member Daniels. Daniels present. Daniels present. Member Davidson. Davidson present. Davidson present. Member Ford. Ford absent. Member Kim.
Kim present.
Kim present. Member Levine.
Levine present.
Levine present. Member Margarita. Member Margarita is absent. She is a new member. Surprise. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales present.
Milford Rosales present. Member Ortega.
Ortega present.
Member Ortega present. Members Chair Siegel.
Siegel present.
Siegel present. Chair Siegel, you have quorum.
Thank you.
So let's do a quick public comment announcement.
No.
That's okay.
Let me do it.
I got it.
Okay.
All right. We're playing double parts here. All right. Public comment will be available for each item on the agenda via telephone by calling one of the numbers listed on the front of the agenda or joining the meeting through the Zoom link. Once you join, you'll be able to listen to the meeting as a participant. To make public comment on an item, when the item is called, members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9. Do not press *9 again, or you'll be removed from the queue. When you are asked to unmute yourself, press *6 for the unmute button to unmute yourself. The live operator will advise you that you'll be allowed 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, we will move on to the next caller. Best practices are to speak slowly, clearly, and turn down the volume of any devices around you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2 is the chair's report. This is an information item. CAC members have received a link to the executive director's report, which was presented at yesterday's board meeting. It is available on the agency's website at www.sfcta.org. The first entry in the executive director's report is about the Portal or Downtown Rail Extension, one of the signature projects in the PROPEL expenditure plan. Earlier this month, the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, completed its formal evaluation of the portal, resulting in a medium-high rating for the project under requirements of FTA's Capital Investment Grant Program. This positive news sets the stage for the anticipated advancement of the project into the FTA engineering phase of the federal grant process, through which the project is seeking a multi-billion-dollar grant. These milestones are a key outcome of the multi-agency work program of the past 3+ years. In the coming months, the integrated project team will be working to support the lead agency, the Transbay Joint Powers Authority, to secure remaining funding, advance procurement activities, and more. On a more local scale, I want to flag that there are public engagement activities underway for the District 1 Multimodal Transportation Study funded by the Neighborhood Transportation Program. We will hear from staff about this later on in the agenda under item 7, so I won't go into detail. I do want to thank staff for their patience in presenting to this body, since we were not able to get to this item at last month's CAC meeting. Before I review meeting management, I'd like to thank the board for approving my reappointment for a 2-year term on the CAC representing District 5, and also congratulate Benicia Margarita, who was appointed to represent District 9. Benicia can't make it tonight due to a pre-scheduled work commitment, but is looking forward to joining us at our March meeting. Notes on meeting management. CAC members, if you would like to speak, you can indicate so by standing your name card on its end so it is pointing up. And when I call on you to speak, press the red star sticker on the base of the microphone to turn it on. A red light below the mouthpiece indicates that the microphone is on. Kindly turn off the microphone when done speaking by pressing the red star again. Be sure to speak directly into the microphone so folks in the back of the room can hear you. Please limit your questions to a max of 2 questions per agenda item. presenters, please only respond to questions if requested by the chair. CAC members and folks in the hearing room, please turn off or silence all electronic devices and computer notifications during the meeting. That's it for announcements. Are there any questions or comments from CAC members on the chair's report? Seeing none, is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on the chair's report? Not seeing any. Operator, is there any remote public comment on the chair's report?
Yes. One remote public comment. Go ahead, Roland.
Yeah, good evening. This is Roland. I don't have any comment. I don't have any comment on the. I don't have any comment on the chair. I'd want to bring to your attention that the video is very blurry, and I'm experiencing severe difficulties understanding the audio. And right now, the closed captioning is saving the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay.
Can I continue? Okay. That brings us to item 3, which is the election of vice chair for 2024. This is an action item. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair. Any member may nominate themselves or another member. The nomination requires a second. After all nominations have been made, we will take public comment and then vote on the nominations in the order they were made until a vice chair is elected. So nominations are now in order for the office of the vice chair of the CAC. Member Daniels?
Yes, I would like to nominate myself.
I'd like to second.
I'll second it.
Jerry, seconds. Are there any further nominations? All right, nominations are closed. Is there any public comment in the room on vice chair nominations? Not seeing any. Is there any remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comment. There is no remote public comment.
Could we have a roll call vote, please, on the nomination of Member Daniels to the role of vice chair?
Member Bars?
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Member Chen?
Chen, aye.
Chen, aye. Member Daniels?
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Member Davidson? Davidson, aye. Davidson, aye. Member Ford? Member Ford, absent. Member Kim?
Kim, aye.
Kim, aye. Member Levine?
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Margarita, absent. Member Milford Rosales?
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ortega?
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Member Siegel? Chair Siegel?
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. Congratulations, Vice Chair Daniels.
Thank you, Mary.
That puts us on item 4, which is approve the minutes of the January 2024 meeting, and this is an action item. Do any CAC members have any questions or comments on item 4? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on item 4? Seeing none. Operator, is there any remote public comment on item 4?
No remote public comment for item 4.
May I have a motion and a second to approve item 4? Member Ortega motions for approval.
Member Milford Rosales, seconds.
Could I please have a roll call vote?
Chair Siegel, if you wish, if there's no objection, you can do same house, same call.
All right, same house, same call without objection. Great. Item 4 passes. Item 5 is adopt a motion of support to adopt the 2023 Prop L 5-year prioritization program for transportation demand management, and this is an action item. Mike Pickford, Principal Transportation Planner, is here to present this item.
Please bear with us for 1 second. Get the laptop set up. Clerk Lombardo is going to share the slides. That's all right.
1 second. Keep logging in though, if you can.
Okay, well, we can get back to this laptop for item 6, but I'll go ahead and present item 5. So this evening we have one Prop L 5YPP for your consideration. As a reminder, the expenditure plan, and I think most of you have heard this before, I believe, but the expenditure plan approved by the voters requires development and board approval of 5-year prioritization programs, or 5YPPs, as a prerequisite for allocation of funds from a given program within the sales tax, along with adoption of the Prop L strategic plan. The next few slides are background, so I won't go into detail, but please ask questions if you have any. To date, the board has approved 20 of the 5YPPs out of 28 total programs. So you can bring up, you can skip through the next couple of slides to number 7.
My computer is frozen. All sorts of bugs. I'll have Brittany shares. Oh, 1 second.
Okay, hold on.
We could probably talk through it.
Sure,
Actually,
sure.
there's not many slides on this.
The pictures we had are so lovely. So this evening we're talking about the transportation demand management 5YPP. TDM is a small program within Prop L, but it can have a big impact. And when we refer to transportation demand management, or TDM, we can mean a variety of policies, programs, and projects, including incentives, education, and enforcement that are intended to shift trips to sustainable modes like transit and biking, or to shift travel to less congested times. Benefits of this can be improved travel choices and improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our existing transportation system, and reducing vehicle use and the attendant emissions. TDM projects are typically lower cost, and they are intended to, again, get more value out of what we've already built. This lower cost is in line with the funding levels in the 5YPP, which are about $380,000 annually. The passage of Prop L and travel behavior changes brought about by the pandemic make this an opportune time to really reset San Francisco's TDM program, for which the sales tax has been the primary funding source.
Like, which slide would you like to?
I just did 7, so we can go on to 8, which is the update slide. Yeah. So to accomplish that reset that I mentioned, we are proposing funding an update to the city's TDM strategic plan for the first time since 2017. This is the only project that we're recommending in this 5YPP at this time, as the intent is to use the updated strategic plan to identify and prioritize TDM projects that will be funded by Prop L and other sources over the next 5 years. We're also recommending a placeholder to fund the recommendations of the plan, which I'll get into next. We have already initiated key work that will inform the strategic plan, including supporting an MTC-led Bay Area household travel survey, where we provided additional funding to ensure a larger and more representative sample of San Francisco residents that will provide us much needed post-pandemic travel behavior data. Combining this data with best practices and lessons learned from other TDM efforts, we will co-lead the TDM strategic plan update with SFMTA staff and regularly convene a TDM working group that includes SF Environment and the Planning Department, as well as regional agencies such as MTC, BART, and Caltrain. The plan will define priority actions that have a high potential to increase travel options and reduce barriers to non-driving options, and to, again, shift when and how people travel. These investments will reduce drive-alone trips and move trips to less congested times. The plan will also include guidance for evaluation and data collection to effectively monitor the impact of these investments. We expect to present this plan to the board for adoption in June 2025. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we are also recommending programming the remaining $1.56 million in Prop L TDM funds available in this 5YPP period to a placeholder for projects that will be recommended by the TDM strategic plan. The placeholder would allow for funds to potentially be allocated to TDM projects prior to the completion of the TDM strategic plan update under certain conditions, which include a requirement that the given project be consistent with any emerging recommendations from the strategic plan, and that the project scores well against the TDM 5YPP prioritization criteria, which include supporting mode shift and or time shift, and that the project demonstrates cost effectiveness. Next slide, please. While the TDM strategic plan does not leverage other funds due to a relative lack of funding sources for planning efforts, the plan will help position recommended TDM projects to be competitive for other discretionary sources, so leveraging will increase as those projects move forward. Next slide, please. We are working with project sponsors to develop the remaining 7 5YPPs, and we will bring those to the CAC and board over the next several months, followed by adoption of the final strategic plan. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Do any CAC members have any questions or comments on item 5? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on item 5?
Recording in progress.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is regarding the TDM. Would it exclude marketing to the Silicon Valley companies to change from using their commuter buses in the city to using transit in the city and to the South Bay, with Caltrain coming online, and when we'll see in the District 1 with Samtrans proposing transit, what would be the need for the major corporations to continue operating their buses and congesting our neighborhoods at various stops? 24th and Church is a perfect example. You can get 3, 4, 5 buses coming at the same time backing up 24th Street. And the reason is these buses arrive on the 5s. In other words, 5 after, 10 after, and then if they're early, they just back up everything in the neighborhood. So my recommendation, I'm questioning whether this TDM would then change the whole idea of corporate commuter buses operating down to Silicon Valley. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further comments in the room. Is there any remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comments, and there is no remote public comment.
Great. Public comment on item 5 is closed. Is there a motion to approve item 5?
moved.
Bar second.
Motion from member Levine, seconded by member Bars. Could we please take a roll call vote?
Great.
Or without objection, we can take that same house, same call. Great. Item 5 passes. That puts us on item 6, which is to adopt a motion of support to allocate $1,444,000 and appropriate $108,000 in Prop L funds with conditions for 4 requests. And this is an action item. Linda Veray, transportation planner, is here to present this item.
It's up on the screen. Oh, sorry. I'll just ask you to ask about it.
I think it's pretty present.
Yep, just pull the mic really close. Like, closer than you feel like you should. There you go.
All right. Hello all, I'm Linda Veray, transportation planner, and this presentation includes 4 Prop L requests. So next slide, please. Okay, great. The first Prop L request is for the Mission Street Selma Transit improvements for $1.2 million to fund the design phase. The project would turn the temporary full-time transit lanes that were implemented during COVID into permanent full-time transit lanes on Mission Street between 1st and 11th Street for muni routes, 14 Mission, 14R Mission Rapid, and regional express buses. The project would also widen the existing narrow transit and travel lanes to reduce the risk of sideswipe collisions and allow more efficient transit and traffic operations, making permanent the current temporary removal of curbside parking and loading from one side of the street. There are proposed changes to the numbers of parking, commercial loading, and passenger loading spaces on each block, many of which were implemented through the temporary emergency transit lanes program during COVID. So the project is expected to reach 83% leveraging of Prop L when all project phases through construction are included. Next slide. The top photo here shows the cross-section of Mission Street before the temporary emergency transit lanes were implemented in September 2020. And the bottom photo shows the cross-section of Mission Street after the changes were implemented and what is in the current proposal to make permanent. Following the implementation of the temporary emergency transit lanes project, a series of surveys were conducted of perceptions of the project among different stakeholder groups, as well as a technical evaluation of project performance. The results were used to refine the current proposal, which will begin design this spring. Next slide. Okay, and this request here is for the Vision Zero left turn traffic calming for $100,000 to fund the construction phase. Under this program, the SFMTA has completed work at 8 locations funded by Prop K. Work orders are pending to install 13 locations, and the remaining 14 locations need to be identified. SFMTA requests Prop L funds to implement traffic calming measures at the 13 approved locations and 14 remaining to be determined locations. And your packet includes the list of locations, which currently include districts 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. And Prop L would also fund outreach and evaluation. And after implementation, staff will complete multilingual outreach around installation sites to raise awareness and build support among nearby businesses or organizations and members of the public. Outreach will be conducted on a rolling basis as turn treatments are installed. Upon completion of the initial 35 locations, staff will evaluate effectiveness of the left turn traffic calming treatments and analyze changes in average and high speed, similar to other Pier City left turn treatment evaluations. Next slide. Okay, and this is another request for Vision Zero for the speed limit reduction project for $100,000 to fund the construction phase. So SFMTA is quickly implementing new state legislative authority AB 43 to reduce speed limits along business activity corridors by implementing new 20-mile-per-hour corridors along eligible corridors with new signage and education efforts. As of January 2024, MTA has implemented slower speed limits along 62 corridors, which amounts to 44 miles of street improvements. 2023 work was funded through Prop K funds and included staff time for planning, design, construction, outreach materials, evaluation, and support for outreach and high visibility campaign components, including light pole banners, transit shelter ads, and merchant posters. So this project will reduce speeds on San Francisco streets and support Vision Zero efforts to end traffic deaths. Next slide, please. And the last request is for $148,000 for the TDM strategic plan. As you heard from Mike, this is request is part of the TDM 5YPP. Allocation of the Prop L funds for TDM strategic plan is contingent upon board approval of this 5YPP, which you just acted on. And the TDM plan update includes developing a new list of measures with the greatest potential to be effective in this post-pandemic environment. The plan will identify projects that could be led by eligible sponsors, including the TA, SFE, MTA, BART, Caltrain, and TIMA. We will use the plan to guide projects to be funded with PropL, TFC, and other funding sources for the next 5 years. And we expect to present the TDM strategic plan update to the board for adoption in June 2025. And this request includes $108,000 for the TA and $40,000 for SFMTA. And next slide, please. And with that, I'm able to answer questions. We also have project managers online available.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Member Daniels.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I was looking at some of the highlights and key points that were in the findings on page 50. There was a survey done for the business owners on Mission Street, and there were 68% of business owners that stated that they were impacted by the recent curb use. And I was just wondering, was there any follow-up with these business owners? Have there been any talks about remedies that could be sought to maybe lessen the impact, or resources that could be offered to support these small businesses? Because they also offer, they also have a relevance to our city, so we need them. So I'm just wondering.
Thanks for that question. We have MTA on the line. Can you help, Steve, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, all right. I'm Steve Boland. I am the SFMTA project manager for the Mission Street Soma Transit Improvements Project. The short answer to your question is yes. In fact, we followed up probably with 4 or 5 different specific, property owners, NPOs, business owners in the corridor. The project's a little funny because it occurred in stages. We had our initial temporary emergency transit lanes implementation where there were a lot of changes to curb use in the segment of Mission Street, right? Largely between 1st and 11th Streets. The permanent project resulted in a number of additional changes. And so it's been an iterative process where we've been working with, MOAD that we've had conversations with, most recently Bayanahan that we've had conversations with about trying to find alternatives to what they consider to be impactful changes to curb use. And to this point, I feel like we've been able to come up with satisfactory solutions in each of those cases. It's been a little while since the striping changes, honestly. Those occurred as part of the quick build phase. We could still get more in the future. We did have some innovative solutions. We had a school, for example, between 5th and 6th Streets in Somo where, they'd previously been doing pickup and drop off for parents and students in a parking lane in front that was removed. It became part of the transit lane. We did something which is a little bit unusual for the SFMTA, which is we provided them with very time limited, very specific, but passenger pickup and drop off in the transit lane. So we've tried to be innovative and creative and responsive whenever we've heard from any of the stakeholders along the corridor about those curb use changes.
Thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Member Ortega.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I actually also just had a quick question here on page 49 of your proposal talking about other notable findings. One of the things that you call out is double parking as being a large issue, and especially if this is the plan to go forward. You said that there's a pilot program to post additional signage, and I think that I just would like to understand a little bit more about this, because if double parking is a big issue, it seems like you need to have more communication with the SFPD or some other people who can help enforce the double parking rules in comparison to just signage. Like, I think signage is helpful, but at the end of the day, people are double parking even if there's a sign. So I would appreciate a little bit more thought or explanation or like ways to help actually achieve the goals that are being asked of this like transit program.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. I mean, double parking in transit lanes is a problem throughout the city. We've done, at the SFMTA, we've done a huge amount of analysis around this, various initiatives. Mission is downtown, particularly one of our more problematic corridors and always has been. We've worked with we can do our own enforcement. And it's a matter of resources and priorities and, where those resources are deployed to do that enforcement. It's an ongoing thing. I think that's the first point I would want to make. And, the second is that, we get some benefit even if there are ongoing double parking issues, right? Like if you go out and watch the operation of Muni buses on Mission Street in this segment, we do have adjacent lanes. It's not one of the locations in San Francisco, of which there are many, where it's difficult to pass. They can generally sort of move around those double parkers. It's something we don't like to see. It's something we're continuing to try to address, but it's not something that hamstrings our operation. I don't know if that's an entirely satisfactory answer for you. It's not an entirely satisfactory answer for me, but it's just an ongoing challenge, to be totally honest with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that does help. I guess maybe at a different point in time, we could talk more about SFMTA options for double parking. And I'm thinking, especially more with any of the streetcars that happen, too, just sort of double parking enforcement in general in this city always seems really bad. And I've definitely had the unfortunate incidents of getting stuck because there's a car that's double parked and they're not moving. And whether that's a bus or a train or anything, I guess that's why I was just curious about the initiatives that you guys were going to try in this particular program. So
I absolutely understand your frustration. And you make an important point, which is that because this is a bus route rather than a rail route, we have a little bit more flexibility in dealing with that. It's more problematic when it occurs along rail routes, obviously.
Are there any other, Member Kim?
Thank you, Chair. I want to mention about the double parking issues, and then I experienced a similar thing in the Geary Boulevard, but it's kind of we cannot avoid because we have a lot of, especially the business area, a lot of delivery truck, and then plumbers, electricians, or the service, and then myself sometimes I have to loading things, but there's not parking, and then there's no way. So I know this is a serious issue, but we cannot remove this one, like even enforcement or ticket. Those ticket all might goes to small business owners. They're sometimes they don't leave neighborhood. They have to drive from their home to business. They are already suffering from pandemic, and then they don't have options. So that's why I saw a lot of business owners and truck drivers. They have to do double parking. So I know it's a really difficult situation, but please ask, what is the better option to the merchant in that area. That helps a lot. Even curbside management, there's general loading zone or commercial loading zone, depends on neighbors. Maybe their demands are a little different. So there's still some option. SFMTA can help the businesses. So please, you have a chance to ask them give them some option, so minimize impact. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a quick comment on that I think is important to make. you know, obviously double parking in San Francisco is endemic. There's arguably a long tradition in San Francisco of double parking where it's just part of the culture, that it's accepted in many ways. One of the ways we try to deal with that at the MTA is not just through enforcement, but through engineering. And on this project in particular, we made a very large number of changes to curb use, partly because we had to, because we changed the basic layout of the street. But we also were very careful to go through and convert parking spaces into either passenger or commercial loading spaces. And in addition to that, you know, we had a lot of those prior to the project that were there and then they'd go away during rush hours because they were tow-away zones. So maybe you could do loading between, you know, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., but then it would disappear until, you know, 6 or 7 p.m. So part of what we did with this project was we actually had a net increase in the number of yellow zones, commercial loading zones in this corridor, and they became full-time. And that was a result of a lot of effort at a very granular level to go through and look at the adjacent land uses, the businesses on that block. And, you know, knowing what we know, we did the survey that was referenced earlier where we got a lot of very useful information. You know, we went door to door. It was during the pandemic. So, you know, we were knocking on doors, also making a lot of phone calls, trying to get information from individual merchants about how loading occurs for their businesses. And we learned a lot through that. It was a lot of work to get that information, but, you know, we were able to craft what I think was a pretty tailored proposal to really, you know, at least provide legal curb use space in a lot of those situations where people end up double parking because they don't feel like they have a good alternative. They don't have a yellow zone, they don't have a white zone. Sometimes people are just going to double park. And, you know, perhaps we approach that more from an enforcement perspective, but there are things that we can do on the engineering side. And I think in this particular case, we put a lot of effort into that. And mission is still a challenge, but I think we've done what we can for the time being on that side, at least.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Milford Rosales.
Thank you. I wanted to ask on the Vision Zero left turn traffic calming, is there a clear place to look at the processes that will be used to select the remaining locations for this list?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to invite Wynn to respond. Hi, Wynn.
Yes, hello, good evening. My name is Wynn Ngo. I'm the Vision Zero Program Manager at the SFCTA. For left turn criteria, we've had some staff transitions for that project team, and we have one other project, the Quick Build Toolkit, that also has some turn calming involved. And so right now, staff are revisiting their criteria for left turns. We're kind of updating those standards for so it can apply both to left turns and right turn calming treatments. So we're in the middle of that, and we will finalize that criteria before we generate a new list of potential locations for the remaining locations for left turn traffic calming.
And as a follow-up, is there an estimate on when that new list will be made available to the public?
We're hoping that the criteria is updated soon, so within the next month. And then we have a commitment to install by the end of the year, but I don't have a good estimate of when we'll have the list for public viewing. But I'm happy to report back when that list is available.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments from members? I have a question about the Vision Zero speed limit reduction. The last time that we received an update about corridors that had received the 20-mile-an-hour treatment, comparing the average speeds before and after the changes, it seemed like most of them hadn't seen much change in average speeds. And so I know that this is a relatively small request, but I would love to see some follow-up analysis of whether that has continued to be the case for corridors where those changes were made, and any that have been made since that last update, to understand whether this is a good use of funds compared to physical traffic calming measures, and especially given that we hear a lot about the limited sign shop capacity. Is this a good use of our resources, and is there any like updated information on this, updated numbers?
Thank you for that question. Again, Winno, Vision Zero Program Manager at the SFMTA. And you're correct that when we last came to the board, we shared initial evaluations for this project, which included 9 quarters. It was when we first started implementing the project, and we wanted to get like initial findings. And the majority of quarters found in that evaluation were already going at 20 miles per hour or below. And so the majority of the purpose of the signage was kind of just to right fit the speed limit setting for what business corridor is already doing. Since then, as Linda shared, we're now at, I think, 62 business corridors implemented, and part of this funding request does include another round of evaluation now that we have more corridors installed, because we would love to see if there has been other impacts that match what we've seen from other peer cities, peer Vision Zero cities that have shown impacts from like sign installation alone. And our current pace for implementation is about 2 business corridors per month, and our sign shops are well staffed to do that commitment.
Thank you, I appreciate it. If there are no other questions or comments from members, we can take a public comment in the room on item 6.
Thank you. Regarding Mission Street, for deliveries, is there any consideration of setting aside location for delivery, but condition it on an appointment schedule basis that you could do through the internet? In other words, between, in half-hour increments or whatever, that a delivery would be reserved for that delivery zone, and utilize the internet for that. I think it would eliminate, because I see so many instances on Mission Street in the Mission where you then have multiple delivery trucks blocking the red transit lane. And as a consequence, it gets all kind of pushed up. And somehow, if they could be on a reservation basis, maybe that might smooth it out. Because I've read about it in Smart City Dive, that's being tried in other cities. So something to do. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no additional comment in the room, do we have any remote public comment on item 6?
Checking for remote public comment, item 6, and there's no remote public comment for this item.
Great, then public comment is closed. Is there a motion to approve item 6?
Lars, aye. Or Lars, motion. Motion. I jumped the gun.
Wilfred Rosales, second.
Moved by member Bars, seconded by Wilfred Rosales. Yeah. Okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Sure. On a motion to approve item 6, member Bars. Bars, aye. Member Chen.
Chen, aye.
Chen, aye. Member Daniels. Daniels, absent. Member Davidson. Davidson, aye. Davidson, aye. Member Ford. Ford, absent. Member Kim.
Kim, aye.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Margarita, absent. Member Milford Rosales.
Wilfred Rosales, aye.
Wilfred Rosales, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. And Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
Great, that puts us on item 7, which is the District 1 Multimodal Transportation Study update. And this is an information item. And we have Elisa Paz, Principal Transportation Planner, here to present this item.
Lisa, if you just say next slide. Okay.
All right, good evening, CAC. My name is Elisa Paz. I'll be giving an update on the District 1 Multimodal Transportation Study. Next slide. This study was requested by Commissioner Chan and is funded through the Transportation Authority's Neighborhood Program. We're focused on resident trip making within District 1, and the project is ultimately going to develop neighborhood circulation and quick build concepts. Those are more near term. And then a set of district-wide mode shift and greenhouse gas reduction strategies, and those are more long-term. Next slide. We did our first round of outreach in spring of 2023. We got about 600 survey responses and did a number of in-person and community events. The first round of outreach helped us understand what priorities and challenges existed, and it also helped us focus in on where to develop our concepts, which is what we are bringing to the public in this current round of outreach. We did notice in the first round of outreach that we had underrepresentation in survey responses from the Asian and youth communities in District 1. So that is something that we're working to address in this second round to have a better response rate. Next slide, please. In total, there's 7 concepts. There's 4 neighborhood circulation concepts, and then there's 3 district-wide mode shift and greenhouse gas reduction concepts. I'm going to go through each of those in the following slides. Next slide. The first is on Geary. This is for the full length of the corridor. The concept would improve transit stops along the corridor with different amenities like lighting, shelters, and seating. This is reflecting feedback that we heard around personal security when waiting for transit, particularly in the morning, evening, and night hours. This concept would also be closely coordinated with MTA's work on the Geary Improvement Project, which is also recommending stop improvements, implementing stop improvements. The next concept is on Cabrillo, again for the full length of the corridor. This has bike and pedestrian safety improvements. For bike improvements, this would upgrade the existing bike lanes with green lanes and conflict markings, and that work would be coordinated with any slow street improvements as well. And then for pedestrian safety improvements, we're recommending at all intersections a combination of high visibility crosswalks, bulb outs with curb ramps, and hardened center lines. The hardened center lines, example of that is in that small thumbnail on the top right. And these help slow the speed of turning vehicles and keep the vehicles turning at like a wide radius so that pedestrians are visible. Next slide. So the next one is on Balboa. This is on the inner Richmond segment of Balboa between Park Presidio and Arguello. These are the same pedestrian improvements at intersections that I just mentioned, as well as transit boarding platforms at 6th and Balboa, which is the center of the commercial area. And that will really give space for people, for riders to wait for transit and also for all the activity on the corridor. And the platform would also be paired with stop amenities as well. The next concept is on Fulton, and this is from 22nd out to 48th Avenue. This concept aims to improve street safety for people crossing Fulton, access to Golden Gate Park, transit reliability, and also personal security at transit stops. There's a variety of treatments here. So the first, I was focused on pedestrian improvements. This is high visibility crosswalks on Fulton and also on all the avenues where they're not currently striped. Pedestrian islands, which you can see in the concept diagram. These help slow the vehicle speeds and also provide a 2-stage crossing for pedestrians. And where there's not signals, recommending rectangular rapid flashing beacons. These are signs with lights that give drivers more awareness that there's activity in the crosswalk and to slow down. There will also be expanded daylighting at intersections. And then for transit, we would be adding bus boarding platforms, transit shelters, and amenities along the corridor as well. Next slide. Also on Fulton, we have a bike improvement, and this shifts the bike connection into Golden Gate Park from 23rd to 22nd. 22nd provides a more direct connection from Cabrillo into the park. You can see in the diagram, we have pedestrian treatments at the intersection as well as bike treatments that are wayfinding. And then working with Rec Park, have an expanded entrance to the park that's also coupled with the transit platform. So to really make this a gateway entrance and give more space for people accessing Golden Gate Park. I'm going to shift to the district-wide concepts. The first is the North-South Express Bus Service. This elevates Sam Transit's bus feasibility study recommendations, which were developed in 2018, and would create a North-South Express Bus Service from the west side to Peninsula cities, which we heard is the most popular destination, most common destination outside of San Francisco for D1 residents. Next slide. The curb management strategy or curb management study on commercial corridors is the next concept. And this would focus on the commercial corridors to make sure that the curb uses reflect how each of the corridors are being used, making space for primarily the movement of people and goods, and also working to reduce the conflicts between the uses that can help improve safety and operations of the streets. Next slide. The last concept is mobility hubs, which can include electric vehicle charging. Mobility hubs are where multiple options for transportation and amenities come together. We heard in outreach a lot of interest in this, but a lot of uncertainty around what that would look like within District 1. So this concept would identify priority locations. We've identified 7 preliminary locations that you can see in that map. It would also develop guidance and for design and amenities, again, including EV charging. Next slide. As I mentioned, we're currently in our second round of outreach. We are seeking feedback on each of these concepts. We have a survey live on our website. It's available in Russian, Chinese, Spanish, and English. We also have a series of events in person within District 1 that will be posted on our website. And the website is sfcta.org/d1-study. Next slide. Using the feedback that we get in outreach, we'll be refining our concepts in the spring and then bringing a final plan to CAC and board for approval this summer. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Member Kim?
Yeah, thank you for presentation and thank you, Chair. I have this is our district, so I have some like 3 questions. And first of all is bus shelter on the Gary. Right now, upgrade bus transit stop, but right now after Gary Peakfield project, we don't have bus shelter. Some area who relocate. So last time I asked the question, and then MTA says the Public Works has frozen the permit process, and then they resumed. That's why they didn't submit the permit. That's why they didn't get permit. They couldn't install the bus shelter. Hopefully coming mid this year. But problem is we didn't have any light or real-time transit information because Public Works has water sewer upgrade next year through 3 years. So after they finish, we'll have those things 2027 or even later. So please, people really not happy about this, but at least you need to inform properly. If you says, oh, upgrade bus transit stuff, people think, oh, we're gonna get light and then all the amenities, but it doesn't come soon. So when you say, share this information, please give the right information, otherwise, you know, people's misunderstand. That's the first point. And second one is north-south connection. We suggest, and then thank you for the bring up this. And then also mobile hub, you have potential location. So one of them is Veterans Hospital. So even north-south, a lot of we need some bus route including this same train. For example, number 18, but number 18 right now doesn't go to Veterans Hospital. So later on, we have a mobile hub in there, but if a bus doesn't go there, there's no connection. So we have to please consider those connections, especially Veteran Hospital and also Delhi City BART station. So number 18 doesn't go to bus station either. They stop Stone Star. So we lose some connection. If there's good connection, and then people would like to use more. So please store those connection stuff. And then last thing is there's a lot of safety measure. We really thank you for bringing up this. And then some intersections, especially BG Street, like 25th and Clement, there's no pedestrian time countdown. So please, while you do this work, including survey in the major intersection, they have those pedestrian countdown. So I believe that helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Are there any other questions or comments from members? I'd like to comment, I also spend a lot of time in District 1. I help run a bike shop in the Inner Richmond, so I'm there almost every day, and I also frequent a lot of businesses in District 1. Great place to get around by bike in the city. I find it very hard to, as a pedestrian, cross Fulton in a lot of places, so I'm really glad to see the proposed improvements for pedestrian safety on Fulton. I know we also had a fatality about a month ago on Fulton, pedestrian fatality. It's particularly hard to cross at the unsignalized intersections, and then also at the signalized intersections, the lights are very, very short. So I was wondering if there's been any consideration of lengthening the crossing times at the signalized intersections, or if that is something that would be considered in a further round of study. And then also whether that more aggressive changes would be considered at the unsignalized intersections, could they be converted to stop sign intersections or signalized intersections? What is the trade-off? Is it, I know the 5 runs on Fulton, so perhaps it would slow down the 5, but other than that, it sounded like there was a stated goal to slow down vehicle traffic, and if the trade-off is pedestrian safety, I'm wondering if we would consider that. Yeah, that's it.
Those are both good feedback items. We're working closely with MTA, so we can bring that up with MTA and get the feasibility of both of those recommendations for the study.
Thank you, I appreciate it. If there are no other questions or comments from members, we can take public comment from the room.
Thank you, Edward Mason. Regarding pedestrian crossings, instead of going with signalized, just put in the flashing beacons. They're very effective in San Jose, where you've got areas where you really don't need to have a stop sign or a stop light. You just put a flashing beacon. Regarding bicycles, how are we going to ensure that the bicycles stay on the route? And the issue is, in Noe Valley, the bicycle route is on Jersey Street, which is a half a block south of 24th Street. Well, do the bicyclists go there? Yeah, kind of, not really, but they're on 24th Street where they shouldn't be. So that's always an issue, is to have bicyclists stay on the route and not get in congested areas. Samtrans, pre-COVID, I met with them, and there were 25,000 cell phones that went from the western portion of San Francisco down to the South Bay. So I hope that there'll be a marketing effort to try to encourage the elimination of the corporate commuter buses and then have people utilize Samtrans there. Regarding the mobility hub for recharging vehicles, I read in Architect Magazine that Tesla in Los Angeles has their recharging station for the restaurant. So it's a destination point for people to go to. And also you could probably lease the property out or whatever, make some money on the deal. But just as opposed to just have it as a dead charging station, I think there needs to be something else added to that and make it a destination point in the planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any remote public comment on item 7?
Checking for remote public comment. There was no remote public comment.
Great, public comment on item 7 is closed. Can we get a roll call vote? Or, I'm sorry, can we?
It's info.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is an information item. Thank you so much. And that puts us on item 8, which is the major capital project update, Caltrain modernization program, and this is also an information item. And we have Brent Teachin, Caltrain External Affairs Manager, here to present this item.
Brent is remote.
Hello, I'm remote. Hopefully you all can hear me. My name's Brent Teachin. I'm the External Affairs Manager for Caltrain. Excited to give you an update on the Caltrain electrification project. Next slide, please. So Caltrain's at a transformational moment in our history. For the first time in 30 years, any U.S. system is being fully converted from diesel to electric. If you know that Caltrain has had passenger rail on our corridor since the 1860s, with the steam train starting then. Diesels were introduced in the 1950s, and we're very excited that later this year we'll be introducing the electric trains for our commuters and our communities to ride. Next slide, please. So the transition from diesel to electric includes the installation of overhead contact system, which is the overhead wire, the poles, and the foundations, as well as the building of 10 traction power facilities along the corridor. These traction power facilities help provide and regulate power to the overhead wires, which power the new electric trains. We are procuring 23 electric train sets. They are 7 cars each, and I'll go into details of those in a moment. And then part of the project was also upgrading the crossing system, which includes the gate activations. That system is fully implemented now and complete. Next slide, please. So some key milestones for the project: all of the foundations, poles, and traction power facilities have been completed. Overhead wire, which is 2.5 million feet, was installed. As I mentioned, we have upgraded the signal system from San Francisco to San Jose. That's at 31 different grade crossings along the corridor. The segment is currently energized from Mountain View down to San Jose. That's about 15 miles. And we have 8 of these new train sets currently on property, with more arriving every month. Each train set has to reach 1,000 miles in testing before it's ready for passenger service, and 4 of those trains are have currently reached that milestone. We've worked with a lot of the cities and counties along the corridor and have trained over 1,000 first responders to know about the safety features and elements of the electric train and the overhead wires. Upcoming, I'm not sure if you noticed, but we did have some recent storm damage from the February 3rd storm that damaged some of the overhead contact wire when a tree fell on that wire. So those repairs are coming up in March. We're looking forward to the full corridor being energized from San Francisco to San Jose in April. And additional train sets are arriving on property throughout the year through fall 2024. We are planning a soft launch, meaning that we'll introduce 1 or 2 trains per week in the summer, and then we'll have a full electric service in September of 2024. Next slide, please. Some of the top risks that we are just monitoring with our contractors are contractor quality and control assurance. So making sure that we're following up and marking each item that is noticed for the contractor. We have noticed some theft of impedance bonds, which are copper cables along the corridor. So we are working with our law enforcement and other agencies along the corridor to reduce that theft. That does pose a risk to the safety of those that are on the tracks stealing that copper. as well as the overall service to our riders. The productivity has been a concern for our contractor, but they are increasing and they are almost done with all of the contract work for the civil work for the construction. And then a huge risk is just making sure that we get the short circuit, which is the energization, done and complete in time for September 2024. Those are going forward in March, so we are very confident that they're going to be successful, but it's just a very a time for us to make sure all the pieces that have been installed and the trains that are on property are working well together. Next slide, please. This is a very detailed slide about the project budget. Overall, the project budget was $2.4 million. And so you can see here the breakdown of each different item from electrification to the EMU procurement and the other minor items as well. Next slide, please. When we did a refresh of the budget in 2021, Caltrain worked with our contractor, Balfour Beatty. It's noted here as BBI. We had a shared risk pool with them, which is a great way for us to manage risk, which is split between both the contractor and Caltrain. So you can see that there's a $34.6 million shared risk pool that is still available for us if any future risks arise. And there's also a separate Caltrain only project contingency that has $7.8 million currently. So overall, there's a $42.49 million risk, a risk pool that's available for us if any future costs arise. Next slide, please. Very excited that in September 2024, that the electrified service plan benefits were announced last year. So overall, we're focusing on a few different items, which is getting there faster, an express train from San Francisco to San Jose in under an hour, very competitive to those that are driving on 101 or 280. That local service, which makes all local stops along the corridor for Caltrain, that will be reduced to 75 minutes versus the current 100 minutes. And those traveling from the Santa Clara County, Gilroy, southern Santa Clara County section can save nearly 30 minutes on their trip from southern Santa Clara to San Francisco. We'll have more frequency overall, so more riding and less waiting, half-hourly service during the weekends and off-peak, and more service than that during the peak hour. Very excited that even with 104 trains per hour, which is our current amount, these trains are able to be more efficient and stop and start more frequently. So we're able to provide 20% more service overall, and 26% of that is going to be to equity priority stations along the corridor. These trains are very modern, spacious, and all electric, so very clean, efficient. They will have free Wi-Fi on board for those riders, a smoother overall, quieter experience, outlets at every seat, and a lot of digital trip information on board to make sure people know where they're going and getting on the right train. Next slide, please. We had some great events last year in San Francisco and in Santa Clara County and San Jose. We had over 8,000 people come out and see the new electric trains at those stations. We'll have another tour in the spring of 2024. That'll be in San Mateo County. These are very family-friendly, very transit-oriented events where we have community booths, live music, food trucks, a very lively event, and hope you all can make it to the next one. Next slide, please. Next slide, thanks. As I'm sure you're aware, with SFMTA and other transit agencies around the Bay Area and around the nation, really, since COVID, there have been some challenges in terms of making sure ridership gets back to its previous level. Caltrain is particularly impacted. We currently are in 2023, we had average weekday riders of 21,000. That's about 30% of our previous pre-COVID ridership of 70,000 per day. So we are still looking to increase our ridership. That does pose challenges for us in terms of financial and fiscal challenges. So we are seeing and looking at a fiscal cliff in 2026 with a $33 million deficit, increasing to about $58 million in the year 2027. And so, yeah, next slide, please. I thought there was one more slide, but we are doing a lot to make sure that that ridership does increase. So we are working on a couple different items, including fare discounts, working with businesses along the corridor to make sure that they have the right resources to educate their riders. We have a great Go Pass program, which provides free rides, or companies can buy in, which then allows their employees to ride Caltrain for free at any time to make sure they can get to work. So a lot of different options that we're looking to increase our ridership, and very excited that electrified service will be ready in September 2024, and will hopefully increase ridership as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Member Ortega?
Hi, yeah, I have two questions for you. The first one is about your improved hours and service hours. One of the questions I have is how late in the evening will some of those trains be going? I know from personal experience that if the last train is at like 11:30 or midnight, and I'm hanging out in San Francisco for a show or something else, the Caltrain isn't running. And while it's great that they have special service for baseball games, it's not really a standard thing that I could expect on any given weekend. So that's my first question is are you not only going to improve the service hours as well as the service, like the frequency in that time?
The current plan is to keep the same span of service, which on weekdays is 12:05 from San Francisco down south. And I believe weekends is around the same time. So it'd still be 104 trains in the same span of service.
Okay, I guess that's something that I'd be curious if you guys would consider looking at as you have the new trains going forward. I think that trying to encourage people to both come to the city on the weekends and also have a way to get home that doesn't involve driving is something that we can all agree is really great. And midnight, I know it seems late, and I once got out of the opera at 11:55, and I was not anywhere near the Caltrain station to get home. So it was, I had to call a friend and it crashed their house instead. So it would have been an option that would have been nice to have. And I know that events like that, or the theater or something else, we want to draw people in from outside town. So then my next question is the buy-in for companies. So this is actually an interesting one, and I wanted to know if that plan that existed had changed prior or after the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, I actually was working at South Bay, and I kept trying to convince my team on site to buy Caltrain passes for everyone instead of using the other option, which is allowing us to buy it through some tax-free funding. Like, why can't we have a pass? And one of the big things that was a complaint was that to buy a Caltrain pass for the company, you had to have it be the entirety of the site's population. So we were at a site where a majority of the people lived in the South Bay. So out of 2,000 people, 200 of them wanted the Caltrain pass. That meant the entire site wouldn't get them. Have you guys considered changing or looking at that policy to allow for companies to buy in at smaller levels and or tiers and or allow it to be an opt-in program where they can pay for the employees that want to do it instead of having it be the entire site or company has to buy in? I feel like that would be beneficial on both sides because it could allow you to tap the riders that already exist and or attract people who may not consider that as an option, and vice versa.
Yeah, I don't believe that that policy has changed, but we have worked since the pandemic to reduce the cost of the Go Pass per user. So that would provide it more value, but I can definitely pass that along in terms of having smaller sets of people being able to buy in for Go Pass.
Yeah, and I can say this too. My roommate works in South Bay and he will occasionally try to take Caltrain, but given the fact that his company has moved away from the Go Pass due to the cost, he no longer can and has to drive more now because it costs the same amount as the cost of gas. So it is something that I can see is still impacting companies to this day. And I would really encourage Caltrain, if your ridership is 30% of what it was, to look at perhaps some other creative ways to increase companies to feel more attracted to the option.
Member Vilford Rosales?
I just wanted to add on to the second part of Member Ortega's comment, as that was my original question as well. My former employer in the South Bay similarly dropped the Go passes after the start of the pandemic because less than 10% of the company, at a site of many thousands, wanted to use them. And so we still had over 100 people that were interested, but it didn't make sense for the company to pay for everyone when the overwhelming majority wouldn't use them. So I'd be very interested in Caltrain potentially trying to revisit that policy.
Member Chen? Similar enough, but not exactly the same, just a random thought that came up, as we always talk a lot about the shuttle programs that these tech companies also use. Is there a way to talk to these tech companies and instead of doing shuttle from San Francisco to their tech office, is it possible to do it from like their office to Caltrain station that's close by? And the reason why I bring it up is because my husband, he works in San Jose and he used to take Caltrain, but it was a 20-minute walk from the Caltrain station to his office in San Jose, and he was okay with it when it wasn't burning hot in San Jose. And then when it got really hot, he was like, I can't do this 20-minute walk. It's just way too hot. And there wasn't a lot of shade. And so he actually had to ask his coworkers whenever he had to catch a Caltrain to be like, hey, can you drive me to the Caltrain station? And he still didn't, want to drive, but after some time, you feel bad constantly asking your coworker to step away from work to kind of drive you to the Caltrain station. So just a thought of like, in thinking about creative ways to get companies to use our public transit more, not necessarily telling them to completely stop their shuttle program, but how about changing it to connect it to our own public transit so it's easier for these tech companies to use our public transit, because sometimes they're not necessarily right next to public transit either, which is why they rely on the shuttle. But how about connecting the shuttle to the public transit and timing it right? Not Caltrain to time it with them, but them timing their shuttles to when Caltrain arrives so that it makes a lot more sense and it makes it so much easier, especially with the electrification and making it go so much faster as is. I think it's a good time for us to start talking to them about how to get these users to come back and use our public transits.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. We do work with commute.org down in the San Mateo County area. I know there are some shuttles, and we are, especially with electrification coming on board with more frequency, are going to be reaching out to some of the bigger tech companies to make sure that they have the right resources. It'd be great to not have them run shuttles fully from San Francisco to San Jose, for people to ride Caltrain down to Redwood City or Menlo Park and take a shuttle. I know Meta and some other companies do that already, where they have dynamic shuttle options, but definitely could be more.
Are there any other questions or comments from members? Similar to Member Chen, but a bit different. I was wondering if you all have ever considered working with local transit agencies to create like express bus service to stations in the cities where you operate, given that, even in San Francisco, there are a lot of places where it takes a very long time to get to Caltrain via transit. Like if you live in the outer Sunset, even if you live right by an end stop, you're talking about a 50-minute trip on a good day. So I was wondering if there could be some kind of integration where maybe there's express service, maybe it's part of your Caltrain fare, like a free transfer or something. Is this something that you've explored?
Yeah, we're definitely working with the different transit agencies, SFMTA, BART, Samtrans, VTA, to make sure those connections to Caltrain are smooth, accessible, and fast. In terms of the fare, I know that Caltrain is participating in the MTC Bay Pass pilot. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that is a pilot for a regional wide fare. I don't know the exact cost, but I think there are a couple thousand people in that pilot currently. It's about a 6-month pilot for a regional pass, which will make the transfers easier from all the different agencies. So that is something that we're exploring as well.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments from members, we can take public comment in the room.
Thank you, Edward Mason. Following along with the comments that have been made, I think that Caltrain should communicate with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group and also the Bay Area Council to encourage the companies to utilize Caltrain. And I've observed in Palo Alto in the morning that there is a connecting shuttle bus that with a MTA sticker on it that goes into the Caltrain, the Palo Alto Caltrain, and it says MTV on the top, which to me means Mountain View. So that is being done. Yes, and there should be maybe smaller shuttles, just small van shuttles that would rotate and operate in the city to get to Caltrain. But not have a monstrous 40-foot or 45-foot bus, double-decker coming through our neighborhoods anymore. I think that it should be the end of that. And also consider the implications of South Bay employees here. That, we've got this deal where we have to provide housing. And, San Francisco is now burdened with 80-some thousand housing units to build. Well, we ought to get a credit from Mountain View and Palo Alto and all the other places because we're housing their employees. And so why are we burdened with having to have more housing here when, not our employees type thing. So anyhow, market with Silicon Valley Leadership Group. Keep in mind that 30 years ago, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group convinced Santa Clara County to tax themselves to have BART to San Jose go. And so let them step up and,
Thank you.
Go for the climate change items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment on item 8?
Yes, we have one caller for item 8. And Roland, go ahead. Maybe not. Here. Okay.
Thank you. Works a lot better when you unmute me. So what I want to talk about is the fiscal cliff and how to avoid it. So there's two ways to do it: is increase the revenues and decrease the costs. On the revenue side, the problem is that Caltrain ridership recovery is actually 40%, not 30%. But Caltrain only counts the passengers who actually pay their fares. So if everybody paid their fares, they would actually have 33% more revenue than they currently do. On the cost side, the problem is that they're still saying they're going to be running 7-car trains just like before the pandemic. And this no longer reflects the current ridership trend. So they're ending up wasting in excess of $10 million a year, which are caused by excessive maintenance, wear and tear, and staff costs. And this is basically, they're heading straight, that's why they're headed straight for this fiscal cliff. The solution is actually quite simple. Just look at what Muni does. Off-peak, they run 2-car trains, and then during peak, they run 4-car trains. You just couple them together. Same thing with Caltrain. The difference is, just like Brightline, for instance, in Florida, and every single European train operator, you're running 4-car trains, and then during peak and special events, you couple them, and you end up with an 8-car train. What the train looks like, I actually wrote to the board before they ordered the trains. 2 cab cars, one at the front, 1 bathroom car, 1 bike car. During peak, you double it. And I think that just about wraps it up. Please advocate for this. SFCTA Director Steve Heminger has been extremely vocal about this since BART started doing this in November last year. It's time Caltrain started running shorter trains off peak. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. Is there any more remote public comment?
No more remote public comment.
Great. This is an information item. Thank you so much again for the presentation. So that puts us on item 9, which is the state and federal legislation update. This is an information item. And we have a senior public policy manager, Amber Crabb, here to present this item.
Good evening. So this was presented at the February 13th board meeting. And as you said, it's an information item because we're basically just reporting on 5 bills that we added to our watch list. So that means that we'll keep monitoring it, and then we'll come back potentially with updates on the bills, as well as potentially recommending positions in the future as this session moves on and the bills continue to develop. So the first 3 bills are all related to Bay Area transit connectivity. The first, as we reported last month, one of the big activities this year is to work on the authorizing legislation for a potential regional revenue measure as early as 2026. Senate Bill 925, Senator Wiener's bill, is going to be the vehicle for that authorization. And so we've been working closely with MTC and MTA, a whole bunch of other stakeholders across the kind of transportation ecosystem in the Bay Area to work on how to build legislation. Right now, as it's envisioned, it's kind of 2 parts. The first is dealing with the revenue measure itself, both what funds can be spent on and then what revenue mechanism will be used. The second part is dealing with regional network management. So basically, potentially identifying MTC as the regional network manager for the Bay Area, and then giving them some powers and requirements for transit operators to work together to advance the region's transit transformation action plan. So right now we are, I think, on the verge of getting real substantive language to be introduced. I'm really excited about continuing to work on that throughout the year. So the second bill related to kind of Bay Area transit connectivity is Senate Bill 926, and this is authored by Senator Aisha Wahab, and this concerns transit operator mergers. So basically would require CALSTA, or the California State Transit Agency, to study the consolidation of all 26 Bay Area transit operators into a single agency. And there's been some pretty strong objections across the region to kind of making that jump without studying, what it would take or what efficiencies could be seen. And so questionable whether it'll move forward, but we do understand at this point that the Senate Bill 925, Senator Wiener's bill, is not looking at consolidation. So this would go beyond that. And then Assembly Bill 1837 is another intent bill that would basically just encourage coordination and collaboration among transit operators in the Bay Area. So it's more in line of what's happening now and what's envisioned for under Senator Wiener's legislation. So the other 2 bills that are on the table are that we placed on the watch list are related to autonomous vehicles. So the first, Assembly Bill 1777, this is Assemblymember Ting's bill, currently includes intent language just around enforcement and data, but we've been working really closely with SFMTA as well as the Assemblymember staff to try to flesh out the bill, and it's likely to be more comprehensive than the intent language, so covering not just kind of enforcement and data and transparency, but things like interactions with first responders and potentially cost recovery and how video footage can be accessed by first responders after a collision. So that's currently still in the bill that we're working on the language. The second bill on the table on AVs is Senate Bill 915, and this one actually has substantive language introduced, and it's by Senator Cortese in the South Bay. And essentially what it would do would require that local cities and counties, before autonomous vehicles can be deployed commercially within the city or county, they have to adopt an ordinance that lays out things like the number of fleet size that's allowable, how they're supposed to interact with first responders. So, and then also the ordinance could include cost recovery. So essentially saying that local jurisdictions could levy a fee in order to enforce the ordinance. And that one, it is getting some support across the state. LA County and San Mateo County just introduced and approved support positions on the bill, as did, I think, today or yesterday, our Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. And at the last board meeting, Commissioner Chan, one of our commissioners, did request that a support resolution be introduced in the next, I guess, at the March 12th board meeting. So we're likely to end up with that position as well. And then finally, wanted to flag a bill that's not on the table, Assembly Bill 3061, and that's by our other assemblyman, Matt Haney for San Francisco. And we'll be adding this to the watch list as of March 12th. But basically, it deals specifically with data, trying to basically require AV companies to provide reports on vehicle collisions, traffic violations, disengagements, harassments, and assaults on a more regular basis and in a way that's more publicly accessible. And so we just met with Assemblymember Haney's staff today. We'll be working with him and his staff on potentially trying to incorporate some of the data and transparency elements from what we've been developing for the Ting legislation into Assemblymember Haney's legislation. So I do, that's the report I had for you today. I'd be happy to answer questions, or on the remotely participating is John Paul Velez, who is our AV program lead at the Transportation Authority. Great, thank you so much. Yeah. Do we have any questions or comments from members? Not seeing any. Do we have public comment in the room on this item?
Yes, I don't know if I can say everything in 2 minutes or not, but regarding the autonomous vehicles cost recovery, we're basically the simulation laboratory. And MTA staff has got a lawyer over there that's tracking this, and where's the money coming from, and we're not getting reimbursed. Regarding agency coordination, I think the biggest deal there is just eliminate the just miss transfer. In other words, get coordination between the transit agencies. And it is working with BART at Berryessa to VTA. They've got it down pretty well, provided BART's on time. VTA is there to take you downtown. Consolidation of all of the transit agencies, I think you're going to lose local control possibly over your own district and your own little nuances that you have in your own area. So and I've also read where there's pushback on this whole concept of doing that. And lastly, 825 regarding bicycles on sidewalks and things like that. There needs to be a discussion regarding electric scooters. Just Google electric scooters and find out how many people are injured, death. We had a death here, Vision Zero. Go look at the Vision Zero stuff from yesterday at MTA, and you'll find out that there were 184 injuries just last year in San Francisco as a result of scooters. And you had one scooter that killed a pedestrian down here on Market Street. The guy worked for KLM, and that was involved in the downtown area. Rome has said we don't want scooters, and they're trying to put legislation against that. Also, Paris, although they had a low turnout, 97% of the people said that you don't have a scooter in Paris now. So it is really a real problem. They've banned them in West Hollywood, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and they've also, for a 1-year ban in Columbia, South Carolina. And there's over 100 cities that have the e-scooters, but now I think they're finding out that there's a lot of controversy on that. If I could just, one last.
At the call of the chair if you would like.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. There needs to be discussion on this. I have documented scooters and bicycles on the sidewalk. I went out on Van Ness Avenue here in front of MTA headquarters on the 2nd of November. And in 20 minutes, photographed probably about 14 instances of bicycles and scooters on the sidewalk. I have been almost hit several times by scooters and private scooters on the sidewalk going down. So this is a real problem that needs to be addressed. And you have the electric buses, electric bikes too now that are entering the scene. So we can continue this on later.
Yes,
Thank you very much for your patience.
Is there any remote public comment on item 9?
Yes, we have one remote public comment.
And Chair Siegel, just to be clear, we should give Mr. LeBrun up to 3 minutes too.
Was there a timer going? There
We
was.
was.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay, Roland, you are on.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Wow, I've been promoted. Thank you, Mr. Mason. So the first thing I'd like to say, you know, when we got a presentation like Amber's, it would be really be helpful from my perspective if I could save the transcript, you know, because I'm looking at it now and all I can do with it is screen capture. There's no way to save the transcript. That's very unfortunate. But I do want to talk about it's Senate Bill 9095. And it's clear that consolidation was never going to work. There is no way that you can consolidate the operators. What you can do, and you should do, is to consolidate the planning. And at that point, you're going to end up a lot like London. London used to be called London Transport. It's now called Transport for London, TfL. And I think the URL is tfl.co.uk or something like that, /about. And that's quite a meaty web page that basically shows you how London Transport works together. And they're in charge of the entire planning. Believe it or not, they actually control the entire freeway network as well. That's how they manage the congestion on the freeway. They're responsible for that. The London Underground is the only thing that they operate because the London Underground is the equivalent of BARD. All the buses are operated by private operators, which, by the way, have got 60% fare box recovery. And there's no way you could consolidate them because they are separate private companies. But what Transport for London does, and what MTC should do, is to completely coordinate the entire timetable for the entire system. That's how that system is seamless. That's how you can transfer from one mode of transportation to another without even thinking about it. And then some of you have probably heard about Crossrail, which is actually a real railway line, which actually operates under the London Underground, because, you know, there's so many layers of underground under London right now. That is actually operated by the same operator as the Hong Kong railway system. It's MTR. So the bottom line is, this is where you should start. Go and see how TfL works. You bring it, you know, all the similar operations in the Bay Area, and then basically it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. It's just a matter of figuring out, you know, where to put the pieces together that fit together. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you for the 3-minute opportunity.
Thank you, Roland.
Is there any additional public comment?
There is no additional public comment.
Great. And this is an information item. Thank you again for the presentation. So this is on item 10, which is the introduction of new business. Do any CAC members have any new business? Not seeing. Then we don't have to take comment, right? Okay, great. Then that puts us on item 11, which is general public comment. This is general public comment on items under the Transportation Authority CAC's purview that are not otherwise agendized at this meeting. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment?
Yes, thank you. I'll just continue on with the electric scooter situation. I would recommend that in your spare time, which I know is precious, but just put in electric scooter injuries or deaths or anything like that and see what comes up. And you'll find that in the United States, between 2017 and 2019, there were 133,000 injuries that resulted from that. And that's in 19, back in 19, and it's going up now even more. Here's the issue that I really have with this, is that the scooter companies absolve themselves of any liability in this. You get hurt, it's on you. And then the question is, wait a minute, that then is on all of us, because if you're insured, the insurer is going to say, well, let's see, what were my expenses last year? I better increase my rates for next year to cover it. And so we're all going to pay for it. And if you don't have insurance, well, then you're on the dole of, at the local level, getting Medicare insurance or medical assistance. So the point is that we're all paying for this, and those scooter companies are laughing their all the way to the bank, because they're making all kinds of money off of this and absolving themselves from any liability insurance. There's some legislation in other areas that are saying you have to have them with a license, you have to be insured as a rider on this, because this is a dangerous thing that's happening. And also keep in mind that come in June, Muni is going to go forward with extending or going out in contract and say, okay, who's going to be the 2 scooter providers that are going to come here for the city? So I think there really needs to be some discussion as to whether we want this as a mode of transportation along with the liability that's involved in it. So that's where I'm coming from, is the money deal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any remote public comment?
Yes, we have one remote public comment. Roland? Go ahead, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you. So I'm going to do my best to try to make some sense here. But what I want to bring to your attention is the gross misappropriation of these COVID relief funds, that we got from the Fed 3 years ago, for which Muni and BART were so desperate, and what's going on in the South Bay. Now, you may recall that ZTA, I think, got like $120 million, and they didn't really need the money. So what they did, they kind of allocated, they spread it from 2023 to 2028, over 5 years. That's how they spread the money. So they say, we're not going to be hitting the fiscal cliff anytime now. And guess what just happened? Believe it or not, they've just had a $57 million operating surplus. Think of another, that's actually bigger than the total operating budget for most of the agencies in the Bay Area. So what they did with that money, they transferred it to a fund called the Debt Reduction Reserve Fund, which now, hello, it's got $320 million. But why did they do all that? Well, they're building this 2-mile, bar to East Street extension, and the bids came in at $120 million over engineering estimates. So guess what? Suddenly, magically, all this operating surplus is now being transferred to capital. And I'm bringing this to your attention. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now. There's something fundamentally wrong with it, and MTC or the Fed are going to have to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland, for your comment.
Any additional public comment?
No more comments.
Great. Then general public comment is closed, and that puts us on item 12, which is adjournment. This meeting is now adjourned.